I'm really glad that Angie was agreeable to present her present her presentation. How's that for saying two words twice? But anyway, I'm excited to hear about it, and I didn't realize you were going to do it at the state convention, so that will really be great.
Yep, we kind of have a sneak peek here.
Yeah. So Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. My name's Angie Measley Stokes. I'm with the Beta Eta chapter. We are up in Paulding, Putnam, and Van Wert counties, so Northwest Ohio. I've been living in Ohio for 10 years and a member of TKG for 9 of those 10 years. So it took me a year to figure out my bearings here. But I presented at the state convention a number of years ago after it would have been 2018, after doing a study tour of Korea. And I focused just on Korean culture based on that study tour. And that's why this time I was like, hey, I was in Japan 2 years ago. I'm going to be going with Ohio State to Japan again this summer. It's time to kind of bring some more of these resources and share them with all the sisters and kind of show off all the different ways that you don't have to start from scratch. It's easy to bring East Asia into the classroom. It's easy to integrate in any sort of discipline. There's a lot of activities and fantastic free materials and resources that are out there. So I'm going to go ahead and start my sharing here. The link again to this I gave to Kathy, so you'll be able to take a look at this presentation anytime. When we look at the various slides, I have pictures and graphics in there linked. So you can always email me. This is my email. It'll be at my school one will be at the end of the presentation, and Janet's email will be there as well. But if you have any questions about, hey, what was that item that you talked about, I would be more than happy to go ahead and refresh or send you a direct link to that. Also, while I'm presenting, if you have any questions, just feel free to butt in. I can't see the chat. I can see your faces, so you can kind of, well, some of your faces. I get kind of a smaller screen when I go to this presentation view. So again, please feel free to ask something, and if I can't answer it, Janet will be able to. So this workshop, again, this is the description that I shared. I've been working with NCTA, the National Consortium for Teaching About Asia, now for almost 15 years. I was introduced to them when I was a social studies teacher in Pittsburgh. I'm certified in social studies and in art. And I used it a lot as a way to incorporate new resources into my social studies classroom. And then as I got more and more into art, when I came here in Ohio and used my art teaching degree, I was also able to use a lot of those resources within the art classroom and also to connect other educators with this content. When I was in school, there were about 3 paragraphs in my history book about East Asia. One was the Chinese Exclusion Act, one was the Boxer Rebellion, and one was a little bit about Japan during World War II. We never even got to the Korean War. So besides struggling to find them on the map, there really wasn't a lot that I personally learned when I was in school. Then when I went to college, I learned a little bit more, again, as a history major. But really, it's been NCTA that's given me all the resources that I've been able to bring to my students. And that's very important, like you were saying, Mary, when you teach a diverse group of kids, or you're working with people in whatever organization you work with, just to have that understanding and that background knowledge is just extremely beneficial. Since I moved here to Ohio, I've been working with Ohio State. We have a summer seminar that we lead every year, except for this year because we're going to Japan. But we also do a number of workshops throughout the year with different themes. And those themes could connect to language arts or math or science. So we're going to take you through some of those themes that we've been exploring and we've been developing curriculum on. These are kind of the 5 areas that I'm going to take you through. First, showing you the East Asian Study Center's kind of overall umbrella. What are all the resources that they have? And then I'm going to go in depth with my students' favorite. This one's just crazy because I teach 7 through 12 art. I'm the only art teacher here. And I get to have kids in all sorts of different settings and see them grow through all that time. And so in junior high, when I have art, I really look at like latching into what they're doing in their social studies curriculum and making connections. And this journey along the Tokaido has proven to be one of the best ways to get them thinking about how all their coursework really kind of integrates. Then we're going to go into this type of module that we call a take and go. It's where we package things together in a Google slide deck to give you all the resources that we could find without overwhelming you on a specific topic. Like there's one on East Asian religions, and there's one on the Cultural Revolution. So these modules give you the chance to explore and learn and find other resources, primary sources and things like that on the topic. Then we'll go to some fun and games. We'll take a look at using games within the classroom, and this works really well with elementary students, and it's also great for time fillers, and it's great for us personally. There's some of these games online here, the math puzzles, that challenged me. When we were doing them in the Zoom session, I couldn't solve the one. I'm like clicking around. I'm like, oh man. But again, kind of some of those brain teasers and things like that. And when we look at the history of games and a lot of the games that have originated from East Asia, we can see a strong connection throughout time. And then finally, if you like this kind of stuff, we can get you connected with some other additional professional development. So all the stuff is free workshops and things like that, because it's paid through the Freeman Foundation. And the Freeman Foundation has worked to put a lot of money and time and resources into teacher education, because Mr. Freeman was in East Asia, in China. And one of the things that he said, part of the reason we had all these problems is because we don't understand each other. And so he knew that he could get a great bang for his buck by educating teachers because of the number of lives that we impact. So they pour a lot of money into giving teachers resources and books and materials and stuff to be able to teach about China, Korea, and Japan. So let's head to Ohio State. This website right here, and again, if we take a look, every time I kind of hover over something, you'll see in the bottom of the screen, the little pop-up. This is linked. And this is the one that's in your lovely little chat. It's connected to the East Asian Studies Center where Janet works, and it links you to a variety of teaching resources, K to 16. So we're talking everything, from the little ones trying to write their names to those college students. And there's a lot of ways that you can search these resources. So if you are a teacher of science, you can go in here and go by subject area, and this is kind of a larger part of this right here. Go by subject area and see what resources we have available for teaching science through the lens of East Asia. It may be inventions and things that we see. It may be weather events. It may be things that connect to language arts and science. And there's a great one that I'm going to show you with the Minamata disease that became a film that some kids are familiar because, they saw the film with Johnny Depp. But it gives you the chance to be able to, based on the way that you want to plan your course of attack, find more about the resources. If you're looking just for a lesson plan, or if you're looking at a film, we have a lot of films that are fantastic to use in total or in part in the classroom. There's things about name pronunciation or web series and videos and things like that. So again, to help you as an educator build your confidence in teaching about East Asia. And you see this is kind of the whole long list of resources here. There's additional teacher trainings and career development and library resources also available to educators. Now, if we go into subject area, there's a lot of different things. We were kind of tossing up a coin at some of these, like tea culture. When you talk about East Asia, oftentimes you think about tea, right? And tea in Japan, tea in China, tea in Korea, differences between the tea ceremonies, the objects that are used, the way tea is prepared, everything that goes with those tea ceremonies. Well, how do you divide that out? Is that something for a social studies classroom? Or is it something for science when you're taking a look at the science of tea and the environment? So there's some things like that, like tea culture and sustainability, or the pandemic and protests. They have their own subject area category. When you click into those, you're going to find some lesson plans. And there's lesson plans that connect to East Asia, and then there's ones from like the Global Teacher Seminar that connect to other areas of the world as well. There's resources like the Japan Discovery Boxes, where you're going to have a lot of great visuals to objects and things that you could incorporate into your teaching. And then there's ones that help you with lesson plans, like how do I teach this A to Z if I'm looking for just one unit, or if I'm looking for just one lesson to help enhance. So We also like to connect with a lot of other, again, high quality resources like Primary Source or Asia for Educators. If you're looking for some sort of articles and background, you heard this in the news and you want some more information on the history of that, those are great links to click on and go to and find out what the story is behind that. And then finally, over here is what Janet kind of alluded to, their presentations. Every time we have presentations or workshops and things, we'll put together a whole series of things. Japanese culture and traveling to Japan. This is what Janet's doing right now for the Ohio State Symphony that we'll be going over. And then our study tour group, we're going to be taking 14 educators this summer over to Japan. And so we're going to be going through those things with customs and food and etiquette and all of that. So if you're just curious to learn more about Japan for yourself or to share with others, that's a great one to take a look at. You click on these little red links and it'll take you into those. There's other presentations that we've made to other teacher groups as well that are kind of tailored, like this one for social studies, another one for social studies, this one for art educators. So you'll get access to the slide decks that we used and the resources that we had for those. So if you're looking for the hands-on materials, really, these are kind of the 6 key areas of the materials that we provide. And again, I'm going to focus on the lesson plans because that's often kind of what gets you in. I was introduced to NCTA through a parent who came to parent-teacher conferences. This kid was like your dream student, always participated, always. And it's like, why is Noah's mom coming to parent-teacher conferences? She was a teacher and she's a teacher and his dad's a teacher as well. They both did NCTA. And she got me hooked when she said, it's free professional development because when I was in Pennsylvania, you had to pay for everything. And she said, they feed you. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm sold on this, but really I had said something in class one day about how I was looking for quality pictures of China and I couldn't find ones that just weren't edited or chintzy or, I'd gone through some filters from the government or whatever. And so Noah's mom came in and she said, I just did a study tour of China last year with NCTA, so I can give you a bunch of pictures. And I was like, this is awesome. So I need to learn more about these people. So again, it was looking for that little bit in a lesson plan that ended up becoming a gateway. And now I had to build a whole new bookshelf because of all the free books that I've gotten from them, especially during the pandemic. And I've read them, almost all of them. I have a whole case in the back of my classroom with materials, teaching materials that I'll pull out. And like I said, when I go to do this presentation in April, at the state convention, I'm going to be rolling the carts in, with boxes of hands-on materials for you to play around with some of these things that we're going to be talking about tonight. And again, the lesson plans are thematic here, and Journey Along the Tokaido is the one that we are really going to be digging into. So time to put on your hiking shoes, ladies. Does anybody have any questions with that intro there, with an overview of everything? All right, let's jump in then. The Tokaido is Japan's national road, and The Ohio State University did a project a number of years ago connecting it through Ohio social studies standards to our national road here that traveled through Ohio. The Tokaido connected Kyoto with Edo, which is present-day Tokyo, and there were 53 stops along the way. So kind of like when you're driving through Ohio and every 8 miles there's a town, well, guess what? Every so many kilometers along the Tokaido, you have a stop. And these stops focus on different kinds of arts and culture and merchants and activities that are going on. And your students get the chance to explore the Tokaido during the Edo period, which is 200 years ago. And then they get to explore it in the 20th century, and then they can explore it again today. So there's 3 ways that your students can dig in to touring the Tokaido across time. In the art classroom, I use this as a way to teach landscapes. Because my students, what's a landscape? And you take a look around out here, what do we see? And it's so much easier to teach perspective in Northwest Ohio because there aren't mountains everywhere like I had in Pittsburgh. But when we look at traveling along the Tokaido, we're looking at traveling along a road with those 53 stations, and it's been documented because of its popularity in many different artistic ways. These are your famous woodblock prints. So the 1830s, during the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries, you had a lot of printmaking being done in Japan. 1830s is kind of a big period for this because you have some of your best printers, but you also have a lot of transit along that trade route. So people are buying posters and postcards and all sorts of artistic things that are being created to kind of document and share with their families what they're seeing and where they're going along the Tokaido. So my students had the chance the first day to explore these woodblock prints, to take a look, click on one of these. It gives you the 53 stations, all these different perspectives. And then the next day we start talking about what do they see in it. And they see Mount Fuji in a lot of them. I see a big mountain. I see a big mountain. And usually there's one kid in my class who's like, is that Mount Fuji? It's like, yes. So we talk about that perspective. We talk about foreground, middle ground, and background. And we use those prints as kind of a gateway in. Then we fast forward 100 years, almost 100 years, to the 1920s. So we talk about how would they be moving along this route a century later. You know, here they're walking, you see some people on horseback, and the kids, some of them say, oh, they're still on horseback. Well, some people are, but they're starting to use cars, right? And as they're traveling along, this group of what become later on manga artists, which leads into other types of Japanese drawing and animation that your students are probably familiar with, they create this manga scroll. So really quick brushwork, ink and brush, documenting their travels in the car along the same route. Here you can click on the links and it'll show you, they have the curators opening up the scroll, following along. They can look at it with translation so you know what's going on there. This one here, all these different ways that Ohio State has documented it. The stations with the names, with translations, without. But the kids are able then to kind of look at what did Station 27 look like in the woodblock print? And then what does Station 27 look like almost 100 years later? This manga scroll. All the technology that had changed. What do you see in this one that you don't in that? You see telephone poles and lines, and you see other cars, but you also see some of the traditional clothing being worn by some of the people. It's such a really nice comparison of change over time. Then our third day of the exploration, then we go into the photographs. So we have photographs from the 2000s. And again, they can travel on the same map, stop at Station 27, and see what it looks like. So they get this idea of technology and trade and transit and change over time. And then by this point, the kids are starting to notice, okay, this is Japan. There's a lot of things that are similar to what we have here. Like my kids, a lot of them have horses or cows or, so they start to look at those similarities. And then the fourth day we use Google Earth and the kids zoom in on the map and they're learning how to use Google Earth in their science class and they come in here and they're like, oh my gosh, I found this. And I challenge them to try to find the perspective of one of the pictures that they looked at, and Cole, 3 years ago, he goes, I found exactly where the artist was standing when he painted that. He thought for sure he dropped in and was looking at Mount Fuji from the same place where that artist was 200 years ago. So it's really, really a neat way for the kids to use technology and art to explore environments and people and culture. And then we get into all of our drawing activities and things like that. But the first time I did this curriculum, I was like, oh yeah, it'll take me 2 days to get through it. And then like 5 days later, and like the kids just got so, wait, I only went on this island and there's 2,000 islands in Japan. I said, we are not spending 2,000 days visiting every island. We're staying on the Tokaido. I had to redirect them, but I had to redirect them in a good way because again, there's so many resources on this website that are truly very, very engaging. So any questions on the Tokaido? There is a super fun board game as well. that just came out a couple of years ago, Tokaido, and you can play it with your kids. It gives you the map, and you're traveling along, and you're collecting these cards and these different souvenirs and experiences and food and stuff like that. So it gives another like hands-on connection to what they're exploring visually there. And the lesson plans too that are connected go through all grades and go through a variety of different types of subject areas. So it's not just art, but again, you can look at it. You can use it for mathematical calculations, or you can use it for a science investigation of the environments. It's just a really cool resource with lots of opportunities.
Sounds
So now
great.
for the next, we're going to look at take and goes. And those again are collections of Google Slides that provide you with a bunch of resources for exploring a theme. So again, you can focus on China or Korea or Japan through any of these 5 lenses or more. So let's say I want to learn more about paper, okay? The one on paper takes you through the history of paper and talking about its origins in China, and then how papermaking evolved in Japan, and how paper is used in Korea. And Korean paper and Japanese paper are 2 different kinds of paper with similar techniques. So there's a lot of things that give you the chance to take something that's simple like that, or something that's as complex as the atomic bombings during World War II, and find a series of resources that you can read and see and learn more about those topics. For some of these take and goes, there's just one version. For some of them, we have a student version and a teacher version. So again, it gives you the chance to kind of take a look at things, add it as an enrichment activity, or use it as a resource to help guide students' investigation. Because if you tell a student to Google atomic bombings during World War II, who knows what they're going to get in their search engine. If you provide them with that slide deck, you know you're giving them quality resources for their research project. Our goal in creating these was to create these guides for different topics. We wanted to include as many different things as possible, so they each have a little bit of a different format depending on what their topic is. And this is a list right now of ones that we have. Again, this is on that website that I linked, the Ohio State website. Again, some have a teacher and a student version, and some just have the student versions for it. There's a lot of ways to explore it. We're going to get down to these a little bit later because this is what the fun and games part, what Sugoroku are. But each of those take and goes follows a basic format of giving you an intro and some suggested readings, giving you those visuals, those pictures and maps. Again, for students who struggle reading, we want to be able to provide some other resources that they can use, suggested activities, and then if you want to dig in deeper, what are those additional resource links? If you know AP teachers, there are ones that are tailored towards AP Human Geography, AP World History. There's ones divided by subject areas. We have a whole series that were developed by teachers with graphic novels about East Asia. And then the series that we're developing right now are with these key issues in Asian studies books. These are books that are 100 pages or less that focus on a topic in East Asia and really kind of get to the meat of it. And they're written by professors from all across the US and around. We have a couple international professors, I think, who've written some of those. But we wanted to take those stories, both the graphic novels and the key issues books, and enable you to teach them in your class whether or not you've read the book. Again, the topics are so pertinent to so many different curricular areas. We have given you the resources to be able to include that. And if you have the chance to read the book or get the book, that's great, but it's not necessary. One of those key issue books that gives you kind of the overall story of East Asia in 100 pages or less. So it's like your wiki on China, Korea, and Japan, is this East Asian Societies. And so here we have 2 take and goes that have been designed for it. This one here, you kind of see in these little snapshots that the take and goes are visually heavy. You know, we have a lot of graphics, different activities and questions, things that you can link, different maps that you can use, charts that students can fill out. And then our second series with the East Asian Societies, this one focused more on students being able to research. So in this chapter, the East Asian Society's book is talking about the Han Dynasty. So these 4 links here are ways for your students to choose an investigation station. And again, not say, okay, everybody, we're going to do Silk Roads together, and we're all going to look at the same resource. No, it gives me the chance when I teach my East Asian art class to give the kids the slide deck and say, pick from one of these slides, pick from one of these. It's a menu. You know, you're going to a restaurant, the kids can all choose something tailored to their reading level, their interest level. And a lot of times I find kids will do more work this way. They'll do a couple of them because they have the choice. Okay, well, Silk Roads, I'm going to check this one out. Well, then what's this connecting peoples and cultures? Or what's this? They'll take a look at more and spend more time on task because it wasn't just the one thing that everybody's doing. And since Susie got done, I should probably be done. So I'm going to finish. You know, it's just a great, great teaching tool. I'm going to show you a couple slides just to give you kind of a taste of a slide deck. This was made by Sharon Drummond. She's a teacher in the Columbus area, the religions of East Asia. And again, she teaches 4th grade gifted, I believe. And so she was looking like kind of through the lens of her students, what did they need? And if you Google religions in East Asia, you get, again, a whole variety of websites. So how do you pull those resources together? She broke it down into these 4 sections for her slide deck. And then each of them had a couple of pages. So if you want to teach your students about Buddhism, here we go. Click on these. These are all live links to be able to go in, find out more information, look at those beliefs. And again, most textbooks are going to give you a page maybe on this. And now you have a whole series of things that you can use to learn and understand more about Buddhism in East Asia. This one's on a Chinese life. And this was actually a take and go that was curated by some Chinese language teachers. And these are all kind of different slides. I kind of collage them all together. But one teacher focused on looking at modern leaders and then made these kind of flashcards on modern leaders in China. And this one took a look at the graphic novel, A Chinese Life, which is about this thick. It's a hefty graphic novel. And just took a couple pages out, which is totally cool. One of our consultants is a librarian with Ohio State. And she's like, you know, we can't copy the whole book, but taking a couple select pictures out and then asking some questions about some really important ideas from that book and from the history of China, and using the graphic novel as a way to teach about those really heavy concepts with just a couple of slides. One that we did in 2022, the Banned Book Club, which is a Korean graphic novel, an award-winning Korean graphic novel. Here's the cover of the book. One person took a quote out, you know, and taking a look at how do you dissect and learn more about the events happening, the real historical events that are referenced in this story, the Banned Book Club. And here, you know, censorship in Korea. What is it that they were talking about? What's kind of the rest of the story that's being discussed in this graphic novel? Here's some activities. This would be really funny now. Hot seat with Korean leaders, you know, as the former Korean president was just indicted. And then taking a look at the ones that they did kind of talk about, giving you that outline. Because sometimes you read a story and there are so many characters being thrown out there, you're just trying to sift through who's what and where and how important are they. Again, these take and goes give you the background information and resources for this book and for this time period in Korean history. A third look, this one's one of the science focused, it's HEF. And Kayla is a Japanese language teacher, and she had with her take and go a couple of different ways of looking at the information in the book about events and creating maps with it, comparing maps, comparing views. And a lot of the questioning techniques that the teachers use in these activities are very open-ended. We're not looking, you know, for a right or wrong answer. And a lot of kids today get nervous, really nervous about that. You know, there has to be right, there has to be wrong. We have to be graded on this. A lot of this is just that exploration and questioning and the finding some joy in doing it, not just to find that right or wrong, but to kind of enjoy the journey as you're learning more about, in this case, Japan. So getting into that fun. Any questions about the Take and Go series?
One question I have, Angie. Now, my daughter is not an educator. She's not a teacher.
Mhm.
Is it okay for her to use this material?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, Janet, you want to?
Our goal is to have these materials used broadly in education, communities, Girl Scout groups and Boy Scouts and community organizations and senior centers, and yes, as broadly as possible for lifelong
Okay.
learning.
Thank you. All right.
I know our local libraries use some of the activities before too, because they wanted to do something for Chinese New Year and they wanted to make sure that it was all good. So here's a Take and Go, here's some resources, and they pulled some images and some of the text and activities from them. So great question. Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to get into some of the fun and games then. If we have to learn so much, can't we have some fun? One of the coolest activities, and I never got to play with these as kids. How many of you have done tangrams before?
I have, and they're lots and lots of fun. That's one of the things I was going to recommend to Mary. There's a lot to be learned using tanagrams. We used them a lot in Math Their Way. This was from about 20, 30 years ago. There was a lot of activities that Math Their Way taught. And it's a fun activity and very inexpensive. You can find them a lot of times at the Dollar Tree stores and
Right.
that kind of thing. And it would be a nice activity for, something to do quickly because they're a lot more difficult, much more difficult to use than you would first think.
I can never get the square back together. Come on, guys. How many of you start on that?
Exactly.
I have a set that came in a wooden box, and I was like, I should have just bought the set that was in the baggie.
Yes.
Has anybody else used ideas of ways to use the tangrams?
There's the
I gave-
online versions too.
Yeah, there are. That's right. When I retired, I gave my tangrams that I had purchased myself to my daughter for our granddaughter. And she and her neighborhood friends love using them. And they are so creative. I cannot, it's amazing how fast they develop that. So yeah, that's a wonderful program.
So there's a couple of things. We had a teacher from Pittsburgh who does a whole unit on tangrams, and I think she was teaching third grade at the time that she did this, but she says she's done tangrams with all ages. I actually did them with my sculpture class. They had to start off with those because learning how shapes build and you create things, and so I had a National Honor Society kids working with kids from our cross-categorical classes and trying to design things with the tangram sets. And then using the XY plane, and they had to apply some mathematics. They're like, no, that's why we take art, to get away from math. But this video right here, A Sage's Journey, the story of it is fabulous because it goes through kind of how did these tangrams even begin? And so again, when you get the slide deck, or if you just Google A Sage's Journey by John Lett, it does a great illustration of the history of it and rolling pictures of tangrams, and it's super creative. This one right here is what we have an art teacher in Columbus who's going to try to imitate this piece. It's an international school, I believe, that did a live action tangrams. And so they built those cardboard ones, and here you can see somebody's arm. And these are actual ones. And the way that they lit the stage, you really can't see the people behind, but they go and tell a story to music, moving them around the stage. It is really, okay, I see. I'm gonna hit it because it is just cool. We won't watch the whole thing. Oh, of course, we're gonna get a lovely T-Mobile ad. You're always gonna get that. Okay, skip, 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 skip. There we go. But I'm just going to show a little bit of it because it's just too cool. You can see a few of the people in the background there. So if you can get your students to be that coordinated that they can work on stage in the dark, put all those pieces together, kudos to you. So yeah, I just think that's the neatest thing. This one right here is what Janet was referring to. There are a lot of online tangrams, even if you don't have the sets. And these are just fantastic challenges. We use this one in our summer. Oh, let me go back to that. We use this one in our summer seminar, and we'll put teachers in teams together where they try to make, we just had that friend there, they try to move these pieces around and spin them and build them, and it's a great communication builder because people are, no, no, move it to the left, move it to the right. No, you need to take this one and flip it. Well, flip it how? So when it comes to being able to give specific directions and articulate what you're thinking, no, no, not that way, spin it that way. It's just really a wonderful game. And you can go basic or your whole animal set. If you're teaching geometry and you need to build things, or if you like to challenge yourself, guys, you're looking, next time you have a blizzard and you're snowed in, we have all these advanced ones that, Elsa from Frozen that you can try to create. But it's a great one. Polypad has a lot of great online math activities, but the Tangrams is probably my favorite of them. Earlier this month, we had a presentation from a professor. And this professor focuses on, he's a mathematics professor, but he takes a look at how temples and shrines use geometry and math in design and construction and problem solving and ways that things are being advertised. And after his presentation, then we had a teacher who created a whole variety of different puzzles, or curated a whole variety of different puzzles, and taking a look at different ways in which Japanese math is applied in puzzles and in art. So this one has the whole slide deck with all those different types of puzzles. Again, they're online puzzles. You can find puzzle books that are similar to them as well. But yeah, it just hours of fun and entertainment in that slide right there, that slide deck. Probably when you think of East Asia and you think of math and science, you might think of origami and paper folding, and tangrams and paper folding kind of complement each other very, very well. When I went to Japan 2 years ago on a study tour, one of the places we visited was the International Origami Museum in Tokyo. And we got to listen to this origami expert talk to us about folding, and he folded this paper ring. He's talking, and I have to concentrate when I fold. Like, he's just talking away and folds this beautiful ring with an elaborate flower on it. And it was just a fantastic place. This museum has some online things that you can take a look at, some patterns and the like. Here's the like from its webpage. But they also go through the history of origami and talk about its applications today. There's a lot of scientific applications. NASA is using a ton of origami because how do you put something up in space that's so large? It's something that's going to be foldable. We did a workshop a couple of years ago on origami, and it happened to be the month that National Geographic focused on the science of origami and how it's being used by engineers and how it's used in nature. We think about insects' wings and the way that they fold. It's much like the folds in origami. So origami is a fantastic way to get kids hands-on with activities to explore East Asia. When we take a look at it, there's a whole slide deck that we have that helps you with visualizing the terminology. what does this kind of a line mean and that? And with my Foundations of Art class, we do paper folding, and I teach the kids the mountain and the valley fold and all of this. And, you know, there's a page, a PDF that you can print out. So this is another one too, if you're taking a look for an activity for a group to do, printing the PDF that's in with our resources on those different folds to help decode them. And then looking at different design types. One of my fellow teachers did this, you know, just had that box in the corner of the classroom, paper and some patterns, and the kids created all these beautiful paper cranes, and they had a series of lockers that they didn't use in their hallway that kids like to go by and rattle. You know, kids are always tempted by that kind of stuff. So she said to the principal, you want me to create an artwork over it? And so they put all these cranes in this heart shape, and the kids didn't touch those lockers anymore. You know, they were beautiful, unused lockers that weren't a nuisance anymore. So when we look at the types of origami, you can have decorative or functional, modular or action ones. So again, kind of learning a little bit more about, yeah, you just think there's the origami crane, you know, what is this? But there's a lot of different ways that origami has been applied in the past and is being applied today. Another item to kind of think about too, like I mentioned with paper, there's different types of paper in China, Korea, and Japan. They're using different kinds of combinations and a different history and different function. Korean paper folding is not called origami. It's zhangjiaobing. And this goes through a folding video where you can actually do paper folding to create these. These are hanbok, or traditional Korean dresses. And we did this as a DKG activity when I presented to our chapter. And I had those little popsicle sticks that have faces on. So I cut out each of our members' faces, and they chose their own paper and made their own hanbok and dressed their own little paper dolls. And it was super fun because like all of us were saying, yeah, do you remember when you were a kid and you had paper dolls? And you remember when your little sister tore off the head off your favorite paper doll, all that kind of stuff. But it was just a neat way, again, to kind of give our chapter something to learn about East Asia, but also the hands-on component. Another type of game, and this is the one that, again, I had mentioned earlier, Sugoroku, are game boards, and they come in a wide variety of different types and styles. This one here is an atomic game board, and if you click on this link, Anne Marie Davis, who we work with at Ohio State, she's the librarian in the Billy Ireland. She has gone through and created this fantastic resource here where you can click on the different squares of this game board to learn more about the story of atomic fusion and atomic history. It's just a combination of things. The big story, if we flip the game board over here, no more Hiroshimas, you'll see. This game board was designed after World War II. It was designed to honor Japan's first Nobel Prize winner in physics, who's pictured right here. And it has a little section, like there's a little picture of Marie Curie on this board, and there's pictures of atomic testing and things. And these little characters here go around the game board to teach you these little lessons. These game boards were presented in a lot of different formats. Sometimes they were magazine inserts, you know, like when you used to get your National Geographic and you open up and you had like a world map or something like that. Some of these game boards were that way. Some of them teach you about Mobo, being the modern boy in Japan in the early 20th century, was the theme of one. And sometimes there's ones that are about animals or about this or that. There's a lot of different themes to these game boards, but again, they were foldable, transportable. You could play them a variety of different ways. This one has the instructions that are along the side, but this website gives you the link with some introductory history and all the translations as you go along. And finally, NCTA, the National Consortium of Teaching About Asia, for Teaching About Asia. Janet has curated a whole bunch of resources here. This is a Padlet. It's one way to take a look again to thematically kind of set up research sections on East Asia or organizations that can help you to find more. Different research areas on China, Korea, and Japan, and then going by subject level, subject area. So again, if you are just like are totally overwhelmed, you're like, I want it kind of all laid out in front of me, clicking to this Padlet here gives you the chance to be able to kind of take a look through it in a chapter by chapter manner. NCTA, again, is a national organization. We have a number of different sites across the country that are managed by a number of different universities. Ohio State is under the umbrella of the University of Pittsburgh, which oversees 11 states, and they provide all sorts of teacher training and resources to those 11 states. So you can take a look and you can find a program within our region, but there's also ones that I've traveled across the country and taken part in some of their workshops in Washington State, and ones in Maryland, and so on and so forth. The link that we put in earlier to the Freeman Book Awards, those again, if you're looking for a book, grades K through 12 about China, Korea, and Japan, this is a great place to look. Each year, just like the Newberries, you know, they award certain books, books get nominated, they get vetted through, they award books, and then we're also working with NCTA to write those curriculum connections. So kind of write a one-page summary of the history or the story behind that book, and then different learning activities that you could use as a teacher with those books. There's resources here, including websites and videos and things. So again, if Ohio State doesn't have it, it doesn't exist. No, if Ohio State doesn't have it on their website, you might find it on this one. But OSU's, I'd have to say, is very, very extensive and more in depth than a lot of these. So, finally, I talked about the workshops and seminars that we have. This is a flyer from the one that we had 2 years ago. And if you're interested in getting information about the workshops we have, Janet can set you up with the email listing. It isn't something you pay for. You actually get paid to do these workshops or to do the seminar. You get a stipend for the time that you spend. You get the 36 contact hours. You get all sorts of free books. Like I said, I had to build a bookshelf, and that bookshelf is too thick on 2 of the shelves right now. So I'm thinking I need to get going with building a 3rd book or 4th bookshelf for things. But also gives you the opportunity to apply later on for study tours. So some of the study tours that you can just sign up for a study tour and pay. And then some of the study tours are application study tours where you apply and only a small group is selected. But then we're working this summer with a team that's going to write more curriculum for the website. So there's some work involved, but it's really fun work and really great people. And this little snippet here, every other week I get an email from the University of Pittsburgh, our coordinating site through NCTA, and it takes a look at what sort of workshops and Zooms are happening across the country. So again, you can participate in anything. The hard one is when there's something on the West Coast, you know, like those start early, those start like at 4 o'clock. But a lot of the things, you know, they record and we can watch later on. So that goes through in a 49 minutes or less, kind of East Asia and a bunch of resources that you can use in the classroom. You can use for your own personal learning and enrichment. You can share with others, again, your DKG, your chapter, your library. This QR code here will take you again to the website that we had. This is my school email. Here's Janet's email, Anne Marie, who we collaborate with as well. That is her email. She's the librarian down there again at the Billy Ireland at Ohio State. But I just want to open it up to questions and things that you might be curious about, or give you a little bit of time to soak it in. Sorry, I didn't send you all food packets and origami. There are workshops where Janet will actually send you the tangrams, or she will send you the origami paper, and we do things together. I'm not that coordinated, so you're going to have to come and see in April. There's going to be some other things that I share in April too that we'll have some hands-on there. So questions and thoughts, things to add, Janet?
Can you put the link to the slides again in the chat? Thanks. I think Mary might have had a question.
Well, I just wanted to say, Angie, this is wonderful information. I wish our science teachers and our art teachers and our reading teachers that could see this. This would be so helpful to them to know. So we have a couple teachers that are at the high school level. I'm going to share this with and tell them, get on this site and check it out.
Awesome.
Because I think some of them would use it.
Yeah, and we
Thank
travel
you.
around and do professional developments for school districts too. So if your school district is looking for a 2-hour PD, and again, it hits every curricular area. How many of us have been in PDs where it's like just focused on one content area and you're like, oh, Kathy, that was pretty
Well,
quick. You're like, I could be doing something else. This opens
I,
up a lot of conversations.
I've always enjoyed those though, but it was always geared towards our grade level. So when we used to go to them, we traveled to Columbus, and years ago that was something that your in-service days meant something. You had to go and you came back with ideas, which I don't know how much they do that anymore. I'm kind of out of touch with the teachers. Yeah, not enough, I know.
Right.
But thank you. Everything, very good information.
Cool.
was
Very good.
excellent.
Thank you
Okay,
guys
yep.
for participating. And I really encourage you to get
Yay.
online with some of those games and those links. Everything when you get the slide deck, if you have trouble getting onto the slide deck, just let me know. But all those things have little links, just hover over it and it'll take you to the page that has that activity or the page that has those slides. And yeah.
Okay. Good for the aging brain too. So that's just great.
We
Wow,
thank
look.
you, Angie.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys for coming on a Thursday. Thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're glad to have you. We're really glad to have you. I have to say, I didn't know the name Tamgram, but I realized that when I taught Quest, we actually used that, but they never told us that name. And we actually had 2 students sit back to back, and they had the pieces of it, and the other person had to tell them how to put it together without, I mean, it was hysterical. It could take a long time. I taught 7th grade then, and they loved it. And then the origami, if you ever teach, I mean, I didn't teach origami, but I taught napkin folding, which was on the order of some of those origami folds. And when I got the boys, at first I just had all girls. And then when I got the boys, I'd go down because I also had lunch duty. And the kids would have these really cheap little paper napkins that they give them at school. And they would be folding them into the napkin folds. And the boys would do it. It was hysterical. But middle school kids really love folding paper.
Mhm.
They really do.
Yeah.
So that would be a good one for them. And I think the tea culture could be a really good topic for a chapter meeting. And then with tasting teas. I mean, that could be really fun. Or you could do something with teapots and teas. That could be really fun.
That would
And
be.
I think sometimes when we have speakers and things, they just either bring a slideshow or they just talk. But if you give them something to do, the people get up and move around. It's a lot more informative and a lot more fun for everyone.
Janet actually figured out a way when we went to Zoom for the summer seminar. She sent packets of different teas to different people. And then the professor that was leading that workshop, we had to go prepare our tea and come back and talk
Right.
about the aroma and the, everything. And it was fascinating that even through Zoom, we could kind of communicate with that kind of hands-on. But like you said, Beth, having that kind of opportunity together, and
Right.
there's so many differences. There's so many things. When we went to a tea plantation in Japan, and they talked about the elevation and then the side of the mountain that you're on and the precipitation and the temperature and this and that. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is like worse than corn and beans. Like it just was how much you cut down and how much you don't cut down. And then they had
Wow.
deer traps because the deer really like the tea, And so we ate deer jerky at the little tea shop because they're like, we kill our deer, like
Oh my goodness.
it was fascinating. Things that you just don't think about, that yeah.
I never thought they'd have deer. I guess I thought we had them.
Yeah. Oh no, they do. And it's funny because we had just come from an area where the deer was considered sacred and, back in the Edo period, right, Janet? If you killed a deer in Nara, you could be executed,
Wow.
And then you feed the deer these little, got bit in my butt a couple times by the deer because Patrick kept giving me these little crackers that you can buy, kind of like at the zoo, and the deer come up to you and
Right.
they were nipping away. So here they're sacred. And then an hour away, they're like, here, have some deer jerky. And I'm like, just wild.
That's funny. That's funny. Wow, that was terrific.
Yes.
I'm sorry there aren't more
Angie.
people here.
Yes.
And
They really
people
missed a
got
good
out.
session.
No, just tell them, come and I'll bring tea for you ladies. You all, okay, I wrote down all of your names. Here we go. So when you come to the session, or at least stop by and see me in April, I'll give you some tea and you can, that'll be your prize for spending the evening with us today.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Well, thanks, everyone. Does anybody have any other questions?
No.
Remember, we have the next one. When is the next one, Sandy?
A week from tonight,
A
so
week from tonight.
February the 6th, I believe.
Right.
Yes. The
And
book
it's the one on
club.
book clubs.
Yes, book clubs. And it's,
And if you haven't registered for the convention, don't forget you need to register by March 4th. And if you have any trouble, if you get with the person that it tells in the thing, Michelle, who is our registrar, she will help you out with the registration form in case you have trouble with that.
and that information will be in the February 1st voice.
Right.
Okay.
So-
And there will be more of our sessions coming out very soon, right, Kathy?
Right.
Yeah, because we do have others planned for February, and we also have March.
And April.
We even have some April ones. So we really are getting ready for our convention. So
Excellent.
thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Angie.
Have a great
Thank you
evening,
for
guys.
taking time
We'll see you
for
in
us.
April. We'll see you at another one of these, but see you in
Okay.
person in April. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.